All right, so many of you asked, what about allergies? So this video will go over using the Ammortal process, how to find the root causes of allergies, right? Because in case you didn't realize, when you go to the doctor and you're diagnosed with allergies, like all conditions, that is managed with pills during the allergy season, right? And so those pills are designed to reduce the chemical response, the hyperchemical response, so you don't have the symptoms of allergies. Yet, if you were to ask the doctors what's the root cause of allergies, just like if you were to ask a doctor what's the root cause of blank, any diagnosis, they will say we kind of don't know, right? However, we do know, and we're going to go over that in this video. Now, before I go over the root causes from our Ammortal process regarding allergies, I want you to understand a very important fact. When did humans become allergic to Earth? Right? Because if you listen to the news every year, not this year because COVID is taking over the news, it's a bigger fear seller than allergies, but prior to COVID, if you remember, right, last X number of years, every year the news will say something like, it's the worst allergy season ever, lots of pollen, right? And so just think, now compared to 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, I guarantee you there was more pollen, right, 500 years ago than now, because there weren't, as much cities, right? There weren't as many buildings. There were more trees and more flowers. And so technically, right, in the history of time, we're at the lowest, right, flower, pollen, tree point in human history, right? The thing called deforestation. But yet the news media will paint a different reality. And so what's really happening is that are allergies increasing, even though pollen count technically, historically is decreasing? Or is there something that is a root cause, or hint root causes, that is causing humans to be hyper-reactive to nature? Right? And this hyper-reactivity to nature, the doctors coin as allergies, right? And so they want to and love to and are trained to tell you that you have blank. Right, and so this way they can give you a pill for it, right? And so now, without, before I go into the root causes, I want to say that if you have been labeled with anything by a doctor, right, if you've been told you have blank, I would highly suggest that you rephrase it and reframe it, right? This is the power of language. I'm actually putting on a language course at some point. You say, I'm currently experiencing blank, right? For example, if your doctor says you have allergies, you can say, I am currently experiencing the symptoms of allergies. That is much better than I have allergies, right? I'm currently experiencing the symptoms of arthritis. I'm currently experiencing the symptoms of high blood pressure. That is significantly different and better than I have arthritis and I have high blood pressure, right? Without going into detail. I'm sure you can realize the big difference. And so, let's talk about what are the root causes of allergies, right? And so, in the Ammortal process, we look at multiple different ways to look at a human, right? This is how we find root causes. Because if you only look at it from one perspective, such as biological, which is how doctors typically look at it, and look at it in a very limited fashion, right? What that means is, in case you didn't realize, we have the science to test over 10,000 different chemicals in your body. A doctor will typically, on your annual exam, will look at about 25 to 30, right? So it's like less than 1% of the data to determine what's happening inside your body from a biological perspective. And so I will start there, right? Because the biological perspective is a lot easier to understand. And so biologically, the root cause of allergies is you have a hyper response, a histamine, a hyperimmune response to whatever you're having allergies to, right? And so then we go, well, what's causing your immune system from a biological perspective to have a hyper response, excessive response? Well, it goes back to inflammation, right? And so there's a reason why, if you watch many of my videos, I talk about how the scientists who are studying this on a regular basis says inflammation, chronic inflammation, is the root cause of almost all illnesses. Allergies is one of them. Right? And so because when your cells are inflamed, the normal processes and the normal reactions to everything is now disrupted. However, that doesn't tell us what the real root cause is, right? Because it's like, Steve, what's the cause of the inflammation? And now we go to, okay, so what are some main causes of inflammation? Again, if you watched any of my videos before, this is nothing new. it's going to be things like your gut is rotted and inflamed, right? In other words, your gut is leaking all kinds of toxins into the rest of your system. Those toxins, like undigested food and poop and bacteria that doesn't belong in the space outside of your colon and your intestines, is causing your immune system to be hyper-reactive to those things, right? It's like attacking those things. There's that. There's also chemicals, right? So you're exposed to, in an average female, about 150 chemicals a day. Males are half of that. Every day you're rubbing on 150 chemicals if you're listening to this and you're a female. And if you're male, half of that, right? So those chemicals have all kinds of neurological, inflammatory, hormonal disruptors in them, right? This is proven. And so what can you do? Well, you detox, right? So you do a detox process, and we have all kinds of detox programs that are made free because of COVID. Free, right? No reason not to do these things. To save your life, they are free. If you're watching this video and you have not done a detox, like, I'll send a link. And you want to minimize the detox coming in, right? Because if you just do stuff to pull out the toxification stuff, but you're still rubbing on 150 chemicals a day, that's, you're not netting less toxins. And so that involves switching your personal care products to be non-toxic versions. Again, we have a resource for that. In fact, if you just go to tossouttoxicity.com, I made a website where we use EWG, Environmental Working Group's database of the most non-toxic products, and cross-referenced it with Amazon Prime. And so these are the non-toxic products on Amazon Prime, right? Top 3 safest toothpaste, top 3 safest deodorant, top 3 safest shampoo, so on and so forth, right? Super simple, actionable, 2 clicks away from the solution for you on tossouttoxicity.com, right? And so that will help minimize the toxins from coming in. You do the detox program, you heal your gut. And so again, we have the gut healing protocol I've also made for free, right? And because, again, saving lives. And so you want to do the detox to heal your gut, because most people, we know 93% of Americans have Roundup in their system. That's basically saying 93% of you that are listening have a dysfunctional gut, right? And so because the Roundup, in case you didn't know, causes your gut to be dysfunctional. So we have no 93% chance that you have some type of gut dysfunction. And so just by doing those 2 things, the top 2 things, next would be like sleeping better, right? Getting more sleep. However, what's fascinating is if you start to restore the toxicity in the gut, you actually automatically, your sleep quality improves anyway. And so you want to make sure that you're choosing to go to sleep at the same time of day and waking up at the same time of day, getting roughly between 7 to 9 hours depending on your unique makeup, right? Not everyone is supposed to get X number of hours. There is variability in that. And the last thing is going to be mind, right? And so in other words, biology and mind will intersect. And so we'll talk about the mind. It's simply that if you're living in a state of stress, that causes inflammation, right? And stress, keep in mind the language of stress, people say, how do I reduce stress, right? Oh, that was stressful. That situation was stressful. Keep in mind, that's not quite how it works. The situation isn't stressful. The situation is the situation. Your current story, your meaning assigned to the situation is causing you to feel linear stress. That's actually what's happening. And again, subtle word change, but powerful, right? And so part of the mental process is your practice of reframing what's happening in your circumstances in your life, to reframe it and experience it in a way you're not living in linear stress, right? And so part of this process may involve you switching your perception in your stories and letting go of certain stories. That's high level stuff. Some of the tactical stuff could be just mindfulness practice, right? At least not thinking about the stuff. That's like, it's kind of symptom suppressing of it. The root cause really is reframing. But hey, mindfulness does give you immediate away from the stress, right? So mindfulness practice would be anything from wiggling your finger 100 times. You count 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Because as you're doing that, you're not thinking about what's to do later, what happened last year, right? What happened in your childhood, what happened last week. So that, you could do breath work, right? So focusing on your breath, again, is just takes your mind and focusing on your breathing, which has tremendous effects, other benefits. It is much better than wiggling your finger. The wiggling your finger is like white belt level practice, right? And so beginning, if you've never done any meditation before, any breath stuff, you're like, I'm new to this, I recommend wiggling your finger. Right? It's like white belt. Breath work is like, blue belt, middle belt, right? And so meditation with breath work is now like brown belt level stuff. Like black belt would be you're actually moving energy with your thoughts while you're meditating, right, with your breath. It's a little bit more advanced. And so, again, nothing wrong, right, with just wiggling a finger. Depends on where your level of mind practice is, right? And so that will help get you out of that linear stress state, right, also known as fight or flight. It keeps your nervous system too amped up, which brings blood flow away from your digestive organs into your muscles, and now your organs and your gut has less ability to heal, right, thus causing the leaky gut. You can see how this is all intertwined, right? And so I'll explain that our Ammortal process isn't about separating your mind, your energy, your body, your mechanical environment. It's all the same. You're in the center. We're just looking at you from a mind perspective, looking at you from an energy, from a mechanical, right, from a biological. It's all you. Any shift in any of these affects everything else, of course. This is very important to conceptualize. You are whole. We're not breaking you in parts. You are whole. We're just seeing you from different angles, right? Very important. So that is the mind aspect of this. Now, from an energy aspect, this is very interesting. I'm just going to open page. So there's a book called The Dictionary of Ailments, Disease and Ailments, right? And so this French scientist actually mapped out the specific thoughts and emotions that relates to allergies. So this is now vibrational stuff, which is like, in my mind, it's energy, right? And so what's tied to energy, I'm just going to read a few lines from this, right? It's basically an allergy is therefore a defense and a sign that my ego is protecting myself with and I'm living basically in a state of aggressiveness and hostility towards a person or a situation. Right? I'm just going to pick a few lines. It's actually like, a couple paragraphs of stuff. Right? So all responses from allergies is part of my emotional system. Liberating my emotions is, it is very helpful in the key. Let's see what else. Yep. And so here's another one. There's a feeling that there's an enemy out there, right, that is interfering with me, right? I feel like I need protective barriers against an enemy, and this enemy is trying to take my power, right? And it's impressing on me, right? So this enemy is impressing their power onto me. And interestingly, this is the meta. I am impressed by the power that others wield as a detriment to my own power. Right? You're envying someone else's power. Interesting. That's actually related to allergies. Right? And so, and of course it has to do with separation of self with people. Right? And so again, these are all the energetic emotions related to allergies. Right? And so what do we do about that? Right? And essentially, the author recommends, and he's got this down arrow heart thing, but I'll sum it up. For many of these things, it's integrating and embodying the vibration, the knowing, the emotion of wholeness and love, right? From so many perspectives, that kind of heals a lot of stuff, right? And so love and wholeness is pretty powerful in terms of restoring your system, right, from chaotic resonance back to full resonance, right? So that's looking at this from an energy level. Again, I can actually do like a whole 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day process on this. This is sort of Cliff Notes version, short version. Remember Cliff Notes from when we were in school? It's funny. And so that's the energy aspect. And so now we can talk about mechanical. Like, how does our mechanical body, how we're positioned and moving, actually affect and cause allergies? Well, just think, if you're on a computer, right, forward like this, typing throughout the day, here are some numbers, right? So when we're sitting back, right, in a chair like this, with our posture aligned, using the chair, using the external structure to support us, there's roughly, with an average human build, roughly about 12 pounds of pressure going down our spine, right? Assuming every muscle is relaxed, right? We're using the chair to support us, and I'm saying that repeatedly for a reason. Now, as soon as I kind of lean forward like this, I've more than doubled. It's about 30 pounds of pressure. And if I go forward like this, right, my angle of my body is now not even vertical, now I'm tilting forward. Again, based on the average build, that number is now 42 pounds of pressure. Right, so keep in mind we went from 12 pounds to 42 pounds of pressure, right? That's almost more than triple. What does that do? What does tripling the mechanical pressure down your body do to your body? Well, It takes a lot of energy, right, to sustain a tripling of pressure, adding tension to your system. That's going to, guess what, cause inflammation. And not only does it cause inflammation, energy is energy. If energy is being used to simply support you 300% more work, that's energy that is not being used to heal, to adapt, to decrease inflammation, right? So of course our mechanical self affects this. Now, that is just a purely mechanical lens. Now I'm going to tie in mechanical energy and mind. Our posture, and this is scientifically proven, it's not Steve's theories, our posture, how we're positioned, dictates our mind, right? There's plenty of studies. They got people basically who were normally happy-go-lucky. They basically made them slouch, and they became kind of sad and depressed. And reverse. They had people who were depressed who didn't respond to medications. In other words, the drugs didn't work for these people, the non-responders to drugs. And they essentially had them smile by biting on a pencil. They didn't tell them to smile, they told them to bite down on a pencil. However, you have to smile in order to bite down on a pencil. So that's a way to not pre-frame them. Hey, we want you to smile to be happy. They were told just to bite down on a pencil. And guess what? Of course, the depressed people became happy, right? Because our mechanical body is directly interacting with our biological self, our energy self, everything. Right? And so that's looking at allergies from a mechanical perspective, making sure that you are positioning yourself in a way that is the least amount of tension. And I'll circle back to why I said letting the chair support you. Just think, if the meta practice of not using something readily available to you, it literally is right next to you, and you are not receiving the support from the chair, where else are you not receiving support from in life? Who else are you not receiving support from in life? Right? So that's an interesting question for all of you to ask yourself. I do not have that answer. I do know that the duality of it is when we want to be better doers, sometimes that can create a disharmony with receiving and getting support, right? And so I highly recommend any of you who are valuing your doing to also equally value receiving support, right? So you have this perfect ideal harmony between the two. Okay, so lastly, we're going to talk about environment, right? And so if you look at the studies, this is fascinating. Our air quality is actually a larger predictor of heart disease and so many diseases than we realize, right? And I don't just mean like dust in the air or mold in the air. I'm talking about the deepest quality of air. What do I mean by that? I'm talking about the electrons in the air, right? Yes, obviously there's all kinds of pollution, and it's obvious that when you breathe into pollution, that causes, it's basically chemicals, right? Chemicals coming into your body is not helpful. However, I'm talking about the ionization of the air, right? If you ever notice, like after it rains and you go outside and you breathe the air, it feels good. The reason is that air is supercharged. It's ionized, right? There's all this electrical energy in the air particles that when you breathe in, you can also call it qi, right? And so in Chinese culture, we call it qi, energy. That electromagnetic energy you're actually getting into your body through breath from living air. If you're inside, especially with like air conditioning and HVAC system, you're breathing mostly dead air, right? It's non-ionized, right? Literally, there's like no energy in that air, very little energy. So what do? Well, what's fascinating is if you think about it, most people will avoid going outside because of allergies, yet what's happening is they're avoiding the actual air quality or the living air that's outside, right? And so you're thinking, well, how do I resolve this, Steve? Well, the fascinating thing is if you start to resolve the biological stuff, right, by healing your gut, pulling out the toxins, stopping the toxins from coming in, you put in some mindfulness practice, right? You start to ideally reframe your stories. All obstacles are actually opportunities, and now and in the past, right? Hint, you actually get to reframe lots of stories in the past that you might be labeling as the T word, right? And if you watch my previous videos, you know what that T word is. I'm not a big fan of. I just call it heightened emotional experiences, right? And so if we get to reframe and find the value of those experiences, there's studies on this, epigenetically, like our genes actually change biologically from this. right? And so changing the stories and using new stories, updating our stories all the time. That's the mind perspective. Energy, we talked about very specific thoughts and emotions that relate to allergies. And guess what happens? When you start taking action towards all of those things, what you'll find is that you can be outside and you're not going to have the symptoms of allergies, right? Your nose and your eyes will be fine, right? And so when I was younger, I had horrible allergies. But you know what? I also suppressed my emotions. I ate Oreo cookies all day, ate horrible. I didn't move my body because I was playing video games like 16 hours a day. I had horrible resentment towards people. Of course I want to have allergies, right? And so just think, imagine going to a doctor, a typical Western trained doctor, right? And you go, oh, my eyes and my nose, it's horrible. And they go, you know, what you want to do is you want to meditate and you want to reframe your stories and you're going to want to heal your gut and leaky gut. Some of them don't even believe in leaky guts. By the way, there's actually 150 toxins coming into your body every day, Mrs. Jones, or 100, or 75 toxins, Mr. Smith, right? And so, yeah, that is actually, now we're speaking, right? We're actually looking at and revealing the root causes of illness, right? And so, if you're watching this video, I have actually some actionables for you. If you have allergies, of course, take the obvious actions I just spoke about. However, my intention this year is to get all of you, my fellow humans, to start a grassroots movement. And the grassroots movement intention is to revamp healthcare, right? To take existing healthcare and make it actually serving for humans, not just serving the companies. And so if you think about it, there's no motivation from top down for this, right? In case you don't know, here are the numbers. If you've been diagnosed, let's say, with diabetes, we know you are feeding the system $250,000, right? You are worth $250,000 to the system if you have diabetes and heart disease. They're probably not super incentivized and motivated to cure these things, right? Because that would be like taking away $250,000 of revenues per person. And we'll do the numbers. 1/3 of Americans have pre-diabetes and diabetes. 1/3, right? That's a huge amount of numbers, right? 100 million people times $250,000 is a lot of money, right? And so lifetime, this is lifetime, right? And so the change won't come from top down. It's got to be grassroots up, right? So we're building an app to stimulate the grassroots, but I want you to help your doctor. What do I mean by this? Yep. And so imagine going to your doctor and you go, what's the root cause of blank? If the doctor says you have something, whatever that may be, and get all of your friends and family to do this. If every patient said to the doctor, what's the root cause of blank, whatever they just got labeled with, the doctor's going to say, like, we kind of don't know. Well, the first time, they're like, we don't know. The second time, the 100th time, they might be like, that's interesting. But the 1,000th time, right, if every patient starts to say, what's the root cause? They go, I don't know. They're going to wake up from the sleepiness, the spell that they're in, and go, how come we don't know the root cause of anything? And then they're going to start to actually look at root causes. It's in the science. All the stuff I told you isn't from me. It's not like, God messaged it to me. I'm reading science. This is publicly available. They're just not reading that science, right? Because they're kept so busy that their updating really is coming from drug reps who are telling them the latest research about drugs as they feed them, right? And that system is, if you think about how not useful for us that is, right? And so I'm asking all of you to take action to ask your doctor, what's the root cause, right? Hashtag, what's the root cause? Let's start that. Hashtag, what's the root cause? Because if this starts to happen, the doctors wake up and they start to look at root causes. And so I have a couple minutes before my next call, and I'll explain to you why this is important. So in the next 10 years, it'll probably happen in 5, but that's just 10 years, when Siri, Alexa, and the phone's AI systems are becoming so sophisticated, you're going to be able to do this. You're going to be able to like, hey, Dr. Smith just prescribed this drug, blank drug. What is that drug's effect on me given my condition? And the AI is like super smart. It can go read, Watson can read 1 million pages a minute, right? And so it goes and reads all the studies and comes back and says, oh, by the way, this drug based on your condition, in fact, even if you were super healthy, for example, NSAID in general, NSAIDs, right, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories in general, the lowest number is 20%. The highest number is 100% increased risk in heart attacks, right? Just think heart disease is the #1 killer. these drugs increase your risk by 20 to 100%. Well, guess how many people, just plain old statistics, how many people those drugs may have killed, right? And so the AI will be able to tell you that data. You'll be like, holy crap, this is awful. You go back to the doctor and like, hey, Dr. Smith, listen to this, right? And then, super smart AI says, yes, this drug, given this condition, actually is horrible. And the doctor's like, nah, get out of here. The first time, the doctor's like, that can't be true. And the doctor asks his Siri or Alexa, or maybe the doctor's like, that's Siri. That's not real. I'm going to ask Alexa because I believe in Alexa more. And Alexa say, oh, same thing. And then this keeps happening. And in fact, the doctor realizes, wait a minute, there's something going on. And the doctor will ask, hey, AI system, go into all my patient case files and analyze it for me the way we've been practicing, what's been the effect. And here's what's going to happen, because it's in the studies right now, I'm reading it, which is, oh, by the way, the way medicine has been practiced in the past in your practice has actually led to these horrible, horrible outcomes for certain people. And so the doctor's not going to go home that day and say, whew, today's an amazing day. I had the best day ever, right? They're going to be pretty sad and depressed and shameful and guilt, all those things. So I can foresee this for doctors. And there's going to be an increase, I've talked about this in previous videos, an increase in suicide rates in physicians. This is unavoidable. I would like to reduce this, right? And so, as part of the medical system, and I have the intention of reducing this as we're making something to make the system so much better. And that's for the people. What I'm asking you to do, essentially, is when you go to your doctor and say, what's the root cause? You're contributing to saving their life, basically. Right? And you might be thinking, well, really? Suicide? Well, chronic inflammation causes depression. It's one of the main causes. Doctors, on average, are twice as unhealthy. That's like saying doctors, on average, are already twice as inflamed as the general masses. This is the data. If you add on top of that this data of, oh my God, the way you've been practicing has not been helpful, this is like putting gasoline on fire. And this is absolutely coming. So if you can go to your doctor and say, what's the root cause? This wakes them up earlier, so they start changing the way they practice, so when the AI comes, they won't feel as guilty and stuff. That is what I foresee. And so I'm asking all of you to take this action and share this. Tell your friends this. You don't have to share my videos. Who cares? Just tell them. Go to your doctor whenever you're about to have your checkup. Awesome. Ask them what's the root cause. If they say you have blank, ask them what's the root cause. Right. So happy to have all of you listen to some of my stuff. If you have any other topics that you want to know about, the reason I made this video is a bunch of people say, hey, tell me about allergies. Comment, let me know what you want to learn about, what you want to discuss. I've been doing this, studying how humans work for 30 years, and so I have some data from a psychological perspective, energy perspective, mechanical perspective, biological perspective. So more than happy to share some of this with you, because it is our intent to empower the masses with the know-how, the understanding, the actions, the behaviors, and then of course the integration. You become the person of health. You're not just doing a bunch of tips and tricks for health. You become the person of health, and that is the key. So, happy day.